1.72 million. That is how many American home sales never happened between 2022 and 2024, and that estimate comes from the government's own housing regulator. At today's pace, the entire American resale market moves about 4 million homes a year. So the missing sales are worth roughly 5 months of the whole market. Erased, not by a crash, not by a recession. Demand did not disappear, and the houses did not burn down. They are still standing, still lived in, still worth more than they were 5 years ago. What stopped was the moving. And the reason is a number printed on a piece of paper that almost half the country is holding and cannot give away. To see the trap, you first have to see the gift. In January 2021, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate in the United States hit 2.65%. That is the lowest number in the history of the series, which starts in 1971. Money was in real terms close to free. Millions of Americans bought or refinanced into that number. And a 30-year fixed mortgage is exactly what it says. The rate is locked by contract for 3 decades. Then the Federal Reserve started fighting inflation. By October 2023, the same mortgage cost 7.79%. In 33 months, the price of borrowing had nearly tripled. Today it sits around 6.5%. But here's the thing nobody locked in 2021 had to think about. The rate follows the loan, not the person. Now zoom out, because the story everyone tells about this is wrong. Everyone says mortgage rates are high. Look at the whole history. Between 1972 and 2019, the average 30-year mortgage rate in America was about 8%. In 1981, the rate averaged 16.6% for the entire year, more than double what it is now. Today's rate, around 6.5%, is not high. It is below the half-century average. The anomaly was never 2023. The anomaly was 2021. And that is the whole problem. An entire country wrote the anomaly into a 30-year contract and now compares every future decision against it. Here is where the gift turns into the cage. Take a real loan at 2.65%. Principal and interest, about $1,007 a month. Now move. Same house, same price, same borrower, but at a market rate near 6.8%. That payment becomes more than $1,500. That is Freddie Mac's own worked example. Nothing about the house changed. Nothing about the family changed. The only thing that changed is which decade you signed it. Economists at the Federal Reserve put a present value on it. Swapping a 3.5% mortgage for a 7% one raises the value of everything you still owe by 38%, around $49,000 on an average loan. That is the price of moving, and it is not on any listing. So how many people are holding one of these? This is the number that turns a private inconvenience into a national jam. According to the Federal Housing Finance Agency's National Mortgage Database, at the end of 2025, 50.6% of every outstanding American mortgage carried a rate at or below 4%. 78% were below 6%, which means only about 1 in 5 American mortgage holders has a rate at or above where the market is now. Everybody else is holding a contract that is worth money, real money, and worth it only as long as they stay exactly where they are. It is a coupon that cannot be sold, cannot be transferred, and dies the moment you hand over the keys. When people stop selling, the shelves go empty. This is the number of homes actively for sale in America. In 2019, an ordinary year before any of this, there were about 1.16 million listings at any given moment. By 2021, that had collapsed to 503,000, a 57% drop in the amount of housing available to buy in a country that had not lost a single house. Listings have been climbing back since to about 1 million in 2025, but notice where the line still sits, below where it was before the pandemic. 6 years later, and the sales pace tells the same story. The American resale market is running at around 4 million homes a year against a population that keeps growing. Now the part that breaks people's intuition. If sales collapse, prices should fall. That is what a demand shock looks like. This is not a demand shock. Here is the median price of a home sold in America. In 2019, $320,250. By 2022, $432,950. Today is around $415,000, still roughly 30% above where it was before the freeze. Fewer sales and higher prices at the same time for years. That combination only happens when the thing that is missing is not buyers. It is sellers. And the housing regulator put a number on that too. It estimates the supply that never came to market push prices up by 7% on its own. This is not a theory somebody floated on the internet. The Federal Housing Finance Agency, the regulator that oversees Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, ran the numbers on its own loan level data. They're finding, for every 1 percentage point that the market rate sits above your rate, your probability of selling drops by about 18%. Scale that across the country, and it comes to 1.72 million sales that did not happen between the second quarter of 2022 and the second quarter of 2024. By that final quarter, sales of fixed-rate mortgage homes were running 45% below where the model says they should have been. Nearly half the market gone. And every one of those non-sales was somebody deciding that the mortgage was worth more than the move. Somebody pays for a frozen market, and it is not the person holding the 3% mortgage. Every year, the National Association of Realtors surveys who actually bought and sold. In its 2025 report, first-time buyers were 21% of all purchases, the lowest share since the survey began in 1981, and roughly half what it was before 2008. The median first-time buyer in America is now 40 years old. 40. A generation ago, that number was in the late 20s. Meanwhile, the median seller is 64. Read those two numbers together, and you get the shape of the thing. The people who already own are staying put, and the door is closing on the people who do not. A housing ladder works only if the people on the rungs keep climbing. When they stop, the bottom rung stops existing. There is one player in this market who is not locked in at all, and watching them is the cleanest proof of the mechanism. Home builders. A builder has no old mortgage to protect. They have inventory to clear. So when rates jumped, builders reached for a tool no ordinary seller has. They discounted the financing instead of the house, paying to buy the buyer's mortgage rate down. And it worked. New home sales in America ran at about 684,000 in 2024 and 679,000 in 2025, nowhere near the crash lows of 306,000 in 2011. Builders are also sitting on the most unsold inventory in years, about 8.8 months of supply in 2025 against 4.5 months back in 2005. Same rates, same buyers, completely different behavior, because one seller can sell the financing and the other cannot. So here's what this actually is. America did not lose its houses. The stock is intact. Every one of those homes is still standing and on paper worth more than ever. What broke is the flow, the rate at which people move through them. The typical American homeowner now stays put for 12 years. In 2005, it was 6.5. The share of Americans who moved in a year has fallen from 20.2% in 1948 to 8.7% in 2022. And in a 2025 survey, 54% of homeowners said there is no mortgage rate at all that would make them comfortable selling this year. Not a high rate, any rate. That is not a market clearing slowly. That is a market that has stopped being a market and turned into an inventory of people staying where they are. The handcuffs do not get cut. They corrode. Every year, some of those cheap mortgages end anyway. A death, a divorce, a job 3 states away, a family that simply outgrows the house. Life does not check your interest rate. And every year, the gap narrows a little from the other side, as the market rate drifts down toward the rate people are holding. That is the whole exit. Not a crash, just arithmetic in time. But it is worth being precise about what happened here, because it will happen again somewhere else. A country handed out an extraordinary 30-year gift at the bottom of a rate cycle, and the gift quietly became a condition of staying still. Nobody was trapped by a policy. They were trapped by a good deal. If you want the next one of these, the mechanism, the data, the part nobody puts on the chart, subscribe.